Sensory overload, oh my God, isn't it difficult? If you're autistic, then I'm sure you can completely sympathise with everyone when they say that the sensory overload is real. And if you're not autistic, then watch the video and perhaps you'll understand a bit more about what we go through on a daily basis. So it's sensory overload. Now, most people don't like loud noises or, you know, bright lights and things like that. But when you're autistic, these things can feel so incredibly dysregulating that you kind of don't know what to do with yourself. When I go into anywhere that is a busy supermarket, for example, I mean, I've learned to go into places, I've learned what I can feel comfortable with, but there have been times where I've been into a large, one of those massive cavernous sort of Tesco's or Asda's, and I find them absolutely overwhelming because they're huge, they are bright, and they are stacked like to the roof with food and what have you. And for me, that is just so much to take in one go that the world just spins out, and I can't cope with where I can't even think about what I've got to do, what I'm looking for. Even if I've got a list, it just is just too much, and the noise of it all, and it's just, it's really hard to describe because you've got all the stuff going on in your brain, but then when you go to somewhere that is overwhelming like that, it literally almost freezes you, you know, like you literally cannot think straight. You cannot think why you've gone in there, what you've got to do. And when I'm in those situations, if I'm with my husband, for example, if he goes off or even just sort of goes over there, if he's not in my vision in front of me and I have to turn around to try and find him, then I'll often, you know, I could end up on the floor because it spins me out so much. Just I've got to deal with all this overload, plus I'm trying to focus on him and where he's gone, and then the panic sets in because I feel like I've been left alone in this space that I'm like super uncomfortable in. So he knows now, like if we the rare occasion we're in those situations, like to stay next to me or stay literally where I can see him, because it throws me even more through a loop if I can't see him and have to start searching for him because there's so much going on. And it doesn't even have to be that extreme. So for example, there's a really sweet cafe run by some people we know, and they had some fairy lights just around their counter, little place with some really sweet little fairy lights around the counter. Now whenever I go, I have to sit with my back to the counter because I cannot have a conversation or eat my cake or whatever looking across from my husband, for example, with those lights in the background, because just the gentle sort of twinkly flashing, it's just too much. It's too much. It gives me a headache almost immediately. It makes me feel dizzy and sick, and it's just something that, you know, most people would not even think about in a million years. But yeah, it's just awful. I mean, my husband's very super sensitive to loud noises. He is autistic also, and he, like when my dog barks, for example, he finds that it nearly always makes him jump and he has to cover his ears. Whereas that doesn't bother me so much. I don't like it, but it doesn't bother me. What particularly bothers me are any kind of repetitive noises or droney kind of noises. So if there's some roadworks going on and you can hear that repetitive drilling, or if one of the neighbours has got like a circular saw out and he's doing that kind of noise, oh, that is just like hell for me. But what a lot of autistic people will have is like super duper sensitive hearing. So my bat hearing, as my husband calls it, like I can even just the sound of if he's got his PlayStation on in the next room and I can just hear that the PlayStation's on, like that sort of slight whirry electrical sound. It's like torture. The best one I can think of with regards to like super sensitive hearing was my old neighbour in his front garden. He used to have one of those sort of, I'm not 100% sure of the name, whether I've got this right, but those sort of like ultrasonic cat deterrent things in his garden. So you like put them in and they're meant to be a sound that only the cats can hear, and it stops them going onto your garden and like pooing in your garden. And I couldn't work out what it was, and every time I would go and put the bin out and I would walk past his front garden, I'd be like, my ear, and I'd come back in and I'd say to my husband, oh my God, my ears. And I couldn't work out what it was until I spoke to my neighbour, and then he told me what it was that he'd got in the front garden. And I was like, geez, my God, like I can't. He's like, how can you hear that? No one can hear that. And I said, well, I can hear it. Not only can I hear it, it's like super painful and distressing. So yeah, like hearing those noises, and the sensory overload as well can go to textures of clothing. I'm not so bad now. Like when I was a kid, I was super sensitive with materials. I've got a lot better with that. However, my son is super sensitive. Like he'll have to go through his might have 10 pairs of underpants, and you have to go through each one every morning and put them on and find one that feels right for him. And he can get very upset if there's something I put out for him that he wants to wear, that I want him to wear, that just doesn't feel right. And he's been known to like walk around with his clothes inside out and things like that just because it feels better. And there's nothing obvious there, there's no labels or sort of itchy bits, but to him it literally makes his skin crawl. So there are all sorts of things like textures of things in your mouth. For example, I can't stand anything remotely sort of spongy, like a bao bun or those horrible ice cream things that are like wrapped in sort of like rice dough, or I'm not quite sure what they are, but like anything that's remotely sort of not sponge as in cake sponge, but anything that like is like biting into polystyrene almost. It's the only way I can describe it is it like makes my mouth expand. Like war, I don't know. I also have a really sensitive gag reflex, so like I can't even hold something, like if you're, I don't know, you run out of hands and you just put something in your mouth, like in your teeth, like this, just to hold it. Even doing that can make me gag. So the sensitivities are real. But for me, the noises and the lights, they're the biggest ones for me personally. And they always have been, and I suspect probably always will be. But yeah, noises, like too many people talking at once, it drives me mad. Like if the television's on and then my son comes in and wants to talk to me, or the cat's meowing or something, I have to just be like, pause or mute the telly, deal with each thing. Right, what do you want? Right, someone shut the cat up. I can't cope with it and think at the same time. It literally sends me into a spin. So they're my experiences with sensory overload. I'll probably think of a load more once I finish recording, but what are your experiences? What drives you crazy with regards to, noise, sound, textures, that kind of thing, smells? That's another thing. My husband's super sensitive to smells. I'm sensitive to them, but not at the level that he is. He's like, he comes in a room, he's like, oh God, I'm gonna be sick. What's that smell? Whereas I'm like, what? I can't smell it. So, we're all different with regards, in the autistic community, but a lot of things overlap. So what's the thing that triggers you the most? What is the thing that is like you find so dysregulating and difficult to cope with? Is it lights? Is it sound? Is it noise? Is it taste? Is it smells? Is it textures? What is your worst sort of sensory nightmare? Or like the feel of things, like sticky things. I hate having sticky hands, and I love being barefoot, but I can't be barefoot anywhere like a swimming pool or or sand. I hate sand. Oh, sand on my skin or anything. Ugh. What's your thing? Please let me know. And thank you for watching, guys.